Okay, so I don't speak Spanish, although I roughly got some of the information you said, and I don't speak English either, so my thought and prayers are with the interpreter. Thank you so much for the job you're doing here tonight, and thank you all for being here. So for Angelica, yes, we've been knowing each other for a few months. According to the math, 168 months, but that's trivial. So the take-home message for tonight, for this talk, is if you have a chance, do visit Mongolia, not just for the fossils. But the take-home message is you never know what's next if you do our job. The first time I visited Mongolia and I finally saw with my eyes the fossils, the unique material from the Gobi Desert, was a few months ago again, in 2007, thanks to Philip and Eva. And as every kid going to Mongolia, what I wanted to do was simple: finding and collecting dinosaurs. I was ignorant enough to forget about all the other beautiful species that you can actually collect in Mongolia. The second take-home message would be never put the tent where I put the tent in the Gobi. It's going to be destroyed within 24, 48 hours, ask them. And third, if I make a plan, it's not going to happen. This is exactly why I'm here today, because I started with many, many plans about dinosaurs in the Gobi. None of them turned out to be still going on today. So after many years, I'm still fascinated by the dinosaurs of Mongolia. Look at these amazing specimens. There is one thing in common between these two individuals. Actually, there is a third sticking out to the left, and the turtles I just showed you in the previous picture. They are illegal. They have been poached. They are in a museum today, a museum that was built simply because too many specimens were finally taken back from the black market, that a museum was needed to simply welcome all the specimens and start to put some of them on display. But all the specimens were illegally collected in the Gobi for a very simple and not paleontological but more practical reason: get money out of it. So people paid by someone, got somewhere in the Gobi, collected specimens simply to feed a black market. And what is left for us today is this: most of the time a hole in the ground, which is not so much disturbing, but many, many times you have either garbage, as you see to your right, marking clearly that someone was collecting or spending time there, or in a very offensive way, let me use this term, you see what is left of a beautiful specimen. The reason is simple. Poachers most of the time don't have enough time or will to collect properly a specimen. They pick up what the market may be actually looking for. So teeth, skulls, claw. It's kind of easy to understand why the rest of the body, vertebra, 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 has not a big appealing for the market, but is crucial to us. And sometimes this is what you find. This is actually a shelter. Literally 3 minutes after we found this poached hole in the ground, a storm came, so I have beautiful pictures of Philip and Eva taking a shelter from the rain in this hole. It's a big, big hole. And nothing is left inside. All the white material you can see close by my backpack are bones broken and thrown downhill because they were not worth collecting. So despite the efforts that the Mongolian government and paleontologists like Phil and many others have been doing for years and years, it's like unnoticed that this is happening in Mongolia. Literally 2 days ago, I was Googling something, and for many reasons, nowadays, it's turning out that it's a new business. Many years ago, rich and how should I say, stupid in not an offensive way, and less clever people with a lot of money bought a Lamborghini or something like that for, show to their friends how they are rich and wealthy. And now the new trend is to put a skeleton in your dining room. So there is a huge market, but there are also people buying this material, otherwise the market would not exist. And that is finally slowly showing up in the media, which is a huge getaway. So what do we do? Is there a way to not stop, but mitigate or help Mongolians to get back their fossils? It may sound easy, it's absolutely not. This is part of the Gobi. It's a huge empty space. Beautiful, packed with fossils. You can literally walk and find bones everywhere. But to be honest, there is no way to control or patrol this part of the planet. You're not far from the border with China. There are no way to control or monitoring who is getting in and out unless you do it properly like we do. So we need something different, a new methodology, a new approach to solve this issue. And the bell started to ring when I was hearing a story from a campfire about good days, old days in Mongolia. So during the 40s, in this picture you see two giants. The lady is Sofia Kielan-Jaworowska, leader of the paleontological expedition that from Poland went all the way in the Gobi for collecting fossils. And the apparently shy guy to the left, he is her husband, Professor Jaworowski. So a paleontologist and a doctor. He was a, what's English? Radiobiologist. So they had the privilege to spend together like 6 months in the field. And for a very lucky coincidence, the doctor had with him X-ray plates, the same plates you use when you go to the doctor. So after 6 months of fun in the Gobi, he took the plates out of his bag and they were gone. They were totally blurred, ruined, no good to use. And he was kind of shocked because he knew the only way to damage that badly X-ray plate were radiations. And he figured that radiation came from the fossil for a very simple reason. Not a lot of space in the tent, so the fossils were piled just by his personal luggage. So through the 6 months, radiation blurred all the plates. And he even ended up publishing it in Nature. 1967, there is something wrong about the dinosaurs in Mongolia. They are really radioactive. It's kind of normal sometimes that bones, fossils are radioactive. And the reason is simple. They are like sponges, so they tend to collect everything coming by. And in many, many localities in the US and elsewhere, the early way to get uranium and other heavy minerals out of a quarry was actually looking for the bones because they were gathering these elements. So as a geologist, I was like, okay, forget for a minute about the cool dinosaurs. You have radioactive bones, you have bones everywhere, you have a relatively easy geology. I mean, if you don't get this, just quit your job and do something different. So how difficult could it be to create something innovative? All I need is a map, a topographic map and a geological map, and then I will beg Philip and others to show me where the fossils were collected. Was I wrong? That's the map. That's a map, one of the best maps ever. This was everything we had, basically, except for points on our GPSs. This is both a topographic and geological map. Isn't that clear enough? So I was like, okay, I may need to invest a few more steps into getting something better out of Mongolia. And when I got Phil's GPS point, that's the same area. So every blue marker is a quarry, a specimen, one of the astonishing fossils out of Mongolia. There are hundreds. It was like, okay, this is not going to work. I cannot do this. Despite radioactive dinosaurs, I cannot accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. So let's step aside from the dinosaurs again and focus on maps. This is a geologist, Richard Gradzinski, and instead of collecting dinosaurs, not just collecting dinosaurs, he thought was necessary achieving some topographic map for relocating their quarries or finding access road to these localities back in the 60s. And the way was not simple, but basically they were using triangulation. So build pile of stones, compass, binocular, and you make a triangle. You measure the angles, the distance, and they created the map you saw. The tricky part is that you have to build hundreds of those in the Gobi. So it takes forever. You can see on the right, we kind of vandalized some of them, but for good reason. We needed to see them from the sky. So I took this crazy Italian, as crazy as I am, and his name is Luigi, and he's expert on drones. You can see two weird Italians and the drones in the Gobi. It's the perfect beginning of a joke. But no, we were trying to do actual science. And by flying hours and hours and hours on top of this pile of rocks that we could actually see from above, and it was not fun in strong wind condition, rain condition. No electricity is a big issue if you're flying with a drone. Then this is what we got. So this is, we have Paleontologia 2.0. This is Mapping the Gobi 2.0. What you see here is basically what a drone can do if you play it properly. To the right is a 3D model that you can get after merging all together every single picture that a drone can take. And this is what we did. We took all the original map drawn by the Polish, and we simply changed into 2018 topographic map. This is crucial not just because we have a nice map, but based on our data, we can implement all the maps that the Polish did, and this also implies we know exactly where nowadays every single marker, every single quarry, every single annotation they put on their map actually is. This is an example. The left is the map drawn by the Polish, and the right is the adjustment after we took our measurements. Do you see, I don't have the pointer, but to the right, the red walls, so that kind of peninsula coming out? Focus on that, because in this quite accurate map you see it literally looks like a peninsula sticking out. This is how it looks in reality. It's very much different. So if you have hundreds of dinosaurs, literally hundreds, coming out from this area, and you're walking across this canyon, you know, one thing is being here, one is carrying out your backpack in this canyon, trying to locate one of these localities. This is a huge step forward. So while Luigi was trying not to crash the drone, I forgot about dinosaurs again, and I ended up doing my job, so measuring geological section. And then we finally had what I needed, a nice map with every single layer clearly highlighted on top of it. And guess what? There's a new way to interpret those GPS points. The plots to the right is where actually in the section some of the dinosaurs, those in this area, fit. And you can clearly see that the random distribution you have from above is absolutely not random in the rocks. So it's a step forward in trying to understand why and where there are so many specimens in Mongolia, why they do preserve the way they do, why we have everything from gigantic dinosaurs to tiny little turtle this big in pristine condition. Everything was mixed, and now we can finally discriminate a bit in between. A funny and unexpected part was this wall. You cannot see the skeleton, can you? No, it's kind of complicated. So back in 1965, the Polish in the same expedition found 2 sauropods, so the big dinosaur with the long neck and the long tail. One in Nemegt, this locality, which is only 46 square kilometers, and another one in Altanul, which is about 2 hours to the west. The Polish found a skeleton in Altanul, missing the neck and the head. Philip was able to relocate the quarry, so we knew exactly where it was collected. In Nemegt, they found a skull, just the skull, beautiful, pristine skull. Guess what? They named these 2 specimens with 2 different names: the skeleton, Ophistocelicaudia, and the skull, Nemegtosaurus. Both sauropods, both found in the same year, different localities, gone ever since. So many people spent a lot of time trying to relocate this quarry, and a lucky guy was walking down this creek and found out the bones still literally sticking out. It was a pile of elements that turned out to be a complete femur. You can see the bottom left. And the reason why this quarry was unfound for almost 70 years is that we could only follow the map. And the map was really wrong, because in an area about twice the size of a soccer field, they draw 1 canyon instead of 5. In which canyon were we looking? In the wrong one. And I have to say, it was definitely not an easy quarry to find out. So the bones are still there, and theoretically we would love to take down the cliff and collect the rest of the specimens. What we're trying to find out is if these 2 sauropods are actually the same thing. Another big issue, and this goes back to the title about the Gobi, is the dust. First of all, dust is your enemy 24/7, and even when you go back home, you still have about 2 kilograms of sand in the bag, in the clothes, everywhere. But it's a huge issue in terms of what can I actually see and interpret while I'm there. This is a picture taken from the drone that gives you an idea of not a beautiful exposure. Most of the Gobi is like this. In a few localities like Nemegt, geologists like me are happier because canyon cut through the rocks and you're actually allowed to see what's going on. You can see the channels, you can see the soils, you can see everything. A few years ago, Google released the image from satellite with the Amazon River moving through years, and you could actually see, it was like the breath of the river, moving. And this is our way to see. These channels kept moving, and dinosaurs are found depending on what these channels were doing. But if you go to other localities, like the one we visited this year, like Bugin Sav, good luck. So, is there anything I could do? And another talk with a clever guy, Philip, brought me to the idea there must be a way to get rid of the dust. And he was saying me that all the specimens they have been collected came from meanders. And I couldn't see any meander there. I was really picky, I have to play the geologist now. But, so we came home, we put together our pictures, and we started to play with our new technology and geological tool. Same picture, different view. Okay, now I start to see something is not just dust. A present river, there are exposures, and there is something really intriguing that I bet you cannot yet see. Let's give a closer look. I was looking at these pictures when I got this one. It looks like really flat, but it's not. On the right, you can see these straight lines dipping into the wall. Okay, that's a meander. At the bottom here, you can see flat rocks. That's definitely not a meander, but that's where dinosaurs are. Same story on the foreground. So yes, there is a meander system here, but where are the fossils? They are not in what I call the meanders, so this bedding. So zooming in the previous picture, here it is. So red circle is our car. The blue arrow is pointing a locality that Phil, Eva, and our colleague Cinzorig were actually rechecking, a bit higher. And the red line is the meander going all the way. And this is a different picture from Buggensav, different area, same technology. Now I see the meanders. Now I know where are the fossils and why. This is just an example. The blue lines are the meander bar growing as the river was floating, and there are multiple of those, so there was a lot of water back then. The system, each arrow, the blue arrow to the left, it's almost 300 meters. So think about the Ebro River, where this very river can make a meander which is 300 meter long minimum, just for comparison. We put contour lines, one every meter, and then I started to play around. The color are not really good, but you can see the tiny little stars. Each one is a quarry, is a locality. And I started to track down, based on my field notes, the yellow path is one event, and there are dinosaurs inside. Just on the side, another event, and so on and so on. And none of this is related to the meander itself, it's just on top of it. So while I was having fun, I often stepped into poached localities. The fun part of measuring geological section is you walk along and you keep finding stuff. This is a poached Tarbosaurus. So the skeleton was there, the head was gone. Same old, same old. So back to radioactivity. The first time we took this fancy tool, it's a portable XRF, basically tells you live the composition of whatever you're pointing at. And I wanted to test why these fossils were actually radioactive. You know, radioactivity is a pretty vague concept applied to geology. So we put together a number of informations, and holy my, they really are radioactive. So uranium is 1,000 times higher than expected. But there is much, much more. You see all this list of elements, they're not common, but they are really common in dinosaurs from Mongolia. If I can combine this geochemical fingerprint, guess what I can do? I can collect data from each locality, rock and fossil. I can go to the museum and do the same. I can check poached fossils and acquire data. And it works. So this is just using one of those elements. To the left, you have a locality, and to the right, you have a specimen. The red triangles are poached ones. But just using one, we can clearly see that some of them may belong to a locality, not to the Gobi Desert of Mongolia, to a locality, defined square kilometers. Others cannot. So instead of an empty map, we have a series of fingerprints. If you find a dinosaur in one of these localities, you know that it will have a different composition from the next one, and so on and so on. Why this is crucial? Because legally speaking, if a fossil is outside of Mongolia, how can you prove to a lawyer, not to a paleontologist, to a lawyer, that the fossil comes from Mongolia? If it's a species we already know, for instance, Tarbosaurus, which is only found there, it's easier. But poachers have been collecting so much that most likely there are new species we are totally unaware. How can we say and prove they come from Mongolia? And from one of these localities, the idea is this geochemical fingerprinting. And it's working. And it's also saying something really weird in a way. So what this plot says, pay attention to the purple circle. These are all poached specimens. They fit together with the green square, which are specimen housed in the paleontological collection in Mongolia, but triple question mark about the locality. As you can see, they don't fit with the area we visited, we are more familiar with. So this simple plot says poachers are working where you are not working. Pay attention. If you keep visiting the same localities, it's worth for science, but you're not getting any closer to where they are actually collecting the specimen. The Gobi is vast. Look for other localities. So a small feedback is that we actually ended up in the media. So there are poachers all over the place, but we are scientifically working for stopping or limiting or making their job the less easy as possible. So I know this is Spain, so it's only 7 o'clock, so supper time for you is far away in the future. But I'm Italian and I'm teaching my kids 7 o'clock is supper time, and these guys are Canadian, they eat at 5. So thank you very much for being here tonight.
Muchísimas gracias. ¿Tenemos tiempo para alguna pregunta?
Sí, 160 month.
Yeah, that's true. Si tenéis alguna pregunta.
We have a really shy audience tonight.
Well, I have one question.
Ouch.
So, yeah. So I know that there has been so many cases. Right now, there's one, the Tarbosaurus, that was stopped from being auctioned at New York. So, is this new technology being used in any court case right now, or is there anything going on?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Potentially soon, am I right? 2 weeks. But I'm cautious. Why? Because in order to be scientifically accurate, I need to check the more localities as possible. So in the localities we properly test, we can be 96% confident that the specimen belonged to this very area, so very few square kilometers. But as I showed in one of the plots, for others it's more difficult. So we can say it doesn't come from here, but I cannot prove it comes from there. So my idea is that if it's like a Tarbosaurus, it must be from Mongolia, unless something is really, really wrong. What it really concerns us is how many species are auctioned or in the market. We can think about they are from Mongolia, but they're new.
Yeah.
It's a huge loss, and we would like to, prove that they are actually from Mongolia.
Yeah. And another
Slowly but
question.
steady, yeah.
I'm curious about it. So is there any possibility, I mean, this is specific from Mongolia because they all have a lot of uranium and other elements, but this technique could be used potentially in other places where poaching is happening?
I'd love to. So you see those mountains in the foreground, in the background?
Yeah.
That's the reason why these fossils have this unique composition. It's not just uranium, but as you see, you can pick up whatever element you prefer. It's a unique case. The methodology works everywhere in the world. The question is, if I go to Dinosaur Provincial Park, if I go to China, if I go to the outcrop you're going to show me in 2 days,
Yes.
the rocks are peculiar enough or not. If they are, then it's doable. If not, it's harder, but worth trying to me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, as I said in the beginning, I was not prepared to study this when I wanted to collect dinosaurs in Mongolia. So I'm getting used slowly to this one.
Okay. So, bueno, si nadie tiene otra pregunta, pues podemos seguir discutiendo en...
Oh yeah, it's going to be.
Bueno, pues muchísimas gracias, doctor Fanti.
Thank you very much.